That was my point. My point is the document says that all the staff are undermining the AFN. That's not our intention. That's what I wanted to clarify. But it's a little too late. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
I'm sorry. This becomes a bit emotional. I cannot fully understand that. But I'm sure you understand my position as well.
Alors,
Microphone number 1, please. You still have time.
peut-être c'est possible d'adresser en français. Alors, le langage,
Oui.
la lettre D, ça indique que tous le staff ont l'opportunité pour, I don't know. I wanted clarification. That was it. That was all. Because the English that is written there says that all of our staff are affecting this in a negative way. And I wanted it to be changed, but it's too late.
No, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry for this. But the thing that I'll see the resolution team if there is anything we can do, because you raise a good point. First of all, the draft resolution number 3 is not a draft anymore, but it has been carried, so it has been adopted. But maybe there is a small glitch with the translation, and this, I think, can be corrected after, because it doesn't change the decision, it's only in the whereas section. So, on this, I will go to microphone number 1 before turning the floor over to my friend here. So, microphone number 1, please.
Okay, Chief Don Miracle, to bring harmony and peace in the Assembly, maybe you could ask the lawyer to clarify the Chief's understanding and the issue he raised.
Okay, good.
If the lawyer could come to the microphone and explain.
Yes, thank you very much. What I will ask? Oh, okay. Yeah. We have the co-chairs have an explanation for this, and I will turn the floor over to my colleague here, Adam.
Thank you, Weena. So I'm just looking at again, the resolution is carried. This is in the preamble. It's in the whereas clause. But we're just looking at it carefully. And what it says is, I'm going to read the whole thing. So it's important to see the first few lines. If I can have the resolution put up on the screen, please. And it's resolution number 3. And it's whereas, the D clause, whereas. So it's whereas, no, sorry, go back previously. Go back. Go back to the whereas section D. Okay, so go forward 1 page. One more, there, okay. So I'm just gonna read this. It's important to read the first few words. It says, actual and perceived conflicts of interests on the part of individual leaders, managers, and staff engaged in decision-making on behalf of the AFN can reasonably be expected to undermine the integrity of the AFN and First Nations and other governments. What it's saying is actual and perceived conflicts of interest, whether it's an actual conflict of interest or whether it's just perceived. What it's saying is that can reasonably be expected to undermine the integrity of the AFN and First Nations. So this resolution is actually resolving that problem. So if you read it in its entirety, it gives you a better picture, but if you read just that one section, it makes it look like the implication is that anybody can reasonably be expected to undermine the integrity of the AFN. That's not the case. What it's saying is those actual and perceived conflicts of interest can do that, and this resolution fixes that. So I hope that helps explain if you read the entire context. I just wanted to provide that. Again, I'm here as co-chair. We had that little discussion. We haven't asked the AFN legal to come up, but I just wanted to share that at this point. So we're hoping that will help. It is now, what time is it now?
5:31.
5:31? and we had a hard stop, so we had one more resolution we were trying to deal with this afternoon, but we are going to forego that resolution, not forego, we're going to deal with it tomorrow morning, and we're going to go to the next agenda item. So with that, I'll turn it back to Weena to introduce the next speaker.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Adam. And thank you all for still being with us here in the room or on the Zoom. This is greatly appreciated. So, we are now at the presentation by Independent Special Interlocutor for Missing Children and Unmarked Grave and Burial Sites associated with Indian residential schools. And I will now check if, oh yes, okay. I will now invite Madame Kimberly Murray, to come on the stage. And you're Kimberly? Okay. So I just want to introduce her properly. So I have a bio here. I'll try to summarize it quickly. So Kimberly Murray is a member of the Ganasdage Mohawk Nation. And last June 8, 2022, Mrs. Murray was appointed as an independent special interlocutor for missing children and unmarked graves and burial sites associated with Indian residential schools. And prior to this new role, she was the executive lead for the Survivor Secretariat at the Six Nations of the Grand River, working to recover the missing children and unmarked burials at the Mohawk Institute. And I will now turn the floor over to her, and maybe she can she can complete whatever I didn't mention, because time is of essence, and I will now turn the floor over to you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Sego Seguego, Kimberly Murray Yungyats, Ganyegahaga ni Ganasitage Wakwaho. Good almost evening. I can't see anyone. I'm really honored to be here today. I want to first acknowledge that we're on the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin peoples. And I want to acknowledge the National Chief and the AFN Executive and all the leadership that's here today for important conversations over the next few days. I want to acknowledge the opening prayer and the drum and all the sacred items that were here this morning and may still be in the room, and for the opening prayer. And finally, I want to acknowledge elders and survivors and their family members that are part of this assembly and that are here today. I want to say thank you to you, Nawe Miigwech, for always speaking your truths. I know it's not easy, especially when we have people across Turtle Island that still deny what happened to you. So I want to thank you for continuing to speak up. As was mentioned, I am the special interlocutor for missing children and unmarked burials. And I often say when I'm speaking to people, who would have thought that in this country we would have a position with that title? But here we are. As many of you know, when Tk'emlúps made the announcement of the 215 little ones that they recovered, Canada came forward and almost immediately said that they were going to appoint a special interlocutor for unmarked burials. It took almost a year for them to put the terms of reference and the mandate document together, and I guess they did some screening of people, and I was approached to take on that position. I'm going to, do I manage my own slides? Or do I just say next slides? Is there a clicker?
There was one, but
Sorry, okay, sorry about that. So when I agreed to take on the position as a special interlocutor, after speaking with survivors and elders, I established some guiding principles of how I want to make sure that I honor survivors and the children. And on the screen are some of the guiding principles that we're trying to operate pursuant. And I know that we're not perfect, and we're doing our best to live up to these principles. And the first is that the bodies and spirits of missing Indigenous children must be treated with honor, respect, and dignity. And that hasn't been the case. That hasn't been the case over the history of Indian residential schools and other institutions, as the National Chief said, of genocide. Another guiding principle is that we want survivors, that survivors must be honored and acknowledged for raising public awareness about the truths of unmarked burials of children who died at Indian residential schools. And not just at the Indian residential schools, but the other associated sites, and I'll speak about that a little bit later. And then we also, another guiding principle is that Indigenous families and communities have the right to know what happened to their children. It's okay. They have a right to know what happened to their children, how they died, where they're buried, and why they died. And I think about our women, that the Winnipeg police aren't going to search for those remains. Like, that is a breach of human dignity. That those families have a right to know. International conventions say they have a right to know. And so that's one of my guiding principles that our office is operating pursuant. And then another guiding principle is that the search for unmarked burials and the recovery of missing Indigenous children must be governed by Indigenous laws, the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, and the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. And that's where we have those conventions about the right to know and the right to dignity, the right to know and protect the burial lands of our ancestors. And then finally, searches and investigations must follow the truth. You know, I learned that when I was a lawyer practicing at Aboriginal Legal Services, I was part of the Ipperwash inquiry, and Overd McCready testified at that inquiry, and I remember what he said: we have to follow the truth wherever it leads us. And so as part of our guiding principles, we need to follow the truth. We need to follow where the children were sent to. We know they went from one institution and they were taken and sent to different institutions and traded back and forth among the different institutions. So I recently launched this map with Canadian Geographic on September 30th. And the whole reason we wanted to do this map is to show to Canadians, to those people that are denying that this happened in this country, all the grounds where there are former recoveries of Indigenous children at residential school sites and where searches are currently happening. And this is a living map, and we're adding to it, and I know some people have gone to, we have the map actually, it's an interactive map at our table out in the hallway. Please, if you see mistakes on it or things that are missing, please let us know, because we're adding as we go through the work that we're doing. You're gonna see on this map, we also have the Indian hospitals. We have reformatories. We have other hospitals, the provincial hospitals where kids died, the sanatoriums. And it's going to just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, unfortunately. So I wanted to just give you that visual right now of where searches have happened and are in the process of happening. So my mandate, we get asked all the time, what does an interlocutor do? What does it mean? Essentially, I've been told under my terms of reference to meet with communities and survivors and the teams that are doing this sacred work of recovery to find out what the barriers are that they're facing and to try and remove those barriers. And I'll speak a bit about some of the common concerns that I've been hearing. We know that we have a big problem with the law, with the colonial Canadian law, with provincial laws. We do not have a federal legislation to protect these burial grounds. We have provincial legislation and territorial legislation, but it's sort of a mixed bag. And some provinces are really bad, really, really bad legislation. We need to create a federal legislation to protect these burials. That's part of my mandate, is to make recommendations on what that new federal framework could look like to protect the burial grounds. I've been told in the terms of reference that were given to me, and I understand, and please let me know if this isn't true, that Minister Lametti consulted with a number of communities and with the Assembly of First Nation on the terms of reference of my mandate. But it tells me that I'm to include think about how to incorporate the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People and the UN Act that was recently passed in Canada. There are many, many articles in the UN Declaration that need to be given life here in Canada. How do we do that? I'm to work with the National Advisory Council, which is an entity that was put together by Canada and the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation. It's more of a technical table, and it has archaeologists and archivists and experts in Indigenous law and elders and survivors. And they're creating toolkits for your communities, toolkits for communities that are doing this work, and creating materials so you know what is the right kind of GPR machine to use. Who are the credible companies? How do you get your data analyzed? And so that's stuff that the National Advisory Committee is working on. I've been told to incorporate Indigenous law, legal orders, and governance into the work and into any recommendations that I may make around a new legal framework. And of course, the big part of my job is facilitating conversations for those teams that you have on the ground that are trying to get funding from whether it's ISK or CERNA or Health Canada or the provincial government, and really talking to communities about some of the problems that they're having and trying to get them into the archives that they need to get into. The mandate specifically also references calls to action 71 through 76, as you all know, are in volume 4 of the TRC final report. Two things in my mandate, which I think a lot of people were not aware of was going to be in the mandate, I wasn't, was that it includes more than the Indian residential school sites. So it's not just the residential schools that are recognized under the settlement agreement, it's the other schools that aren't recognized, and then it's Indian hospitals, reformatories, sanatorium, anywhere where the truth takes us about where kids are buried. And so I've been hearing from survivors, those very same survivors that tried to get these institutions on the Indian Residential School Settlement Agreement are now raising concerns about burials at those institutions that were denied under the Indian Residential School Settlement Agreement. Inevitably, it's on that list. So there's hundreds and hundreds of institutions in addition to the residential schools. And then finally, my mandate tells me to make some recommendations around land back. It doesn't use that wording in the mandate, but that's the wording I use. We know that the federal government expropriated lands to build these institutions. They expropriated lands or gave away land to church entities, and they were never returned to First Nations. And so we see a number of situations across the country where that's the case, where churches are sitting on lands that they own that should be returned back to Indigenous peoples. Like every mandate, I have restrictions. I'm not to interfere in criminal investigations, prosecutions, or civil proceedings. The word interfere is up for interpretation, but I take that very seriously. We do have a couple of criminal investigations that are happening across the country around the unmarked burials. I don't interfere in those. Obviously, I go to meetings if communities ask me to attend those meetings with the police entities. I also don't have the power to get you records. I can't compel records. But I say this to you, you don't want me to get the records because I'm set up like a federal government entity. And if I get the records, you don't get the records. They just end up in the same legal mess that the records are currently in. So what I like to do is help people get the records, help your First Nation, help your teams doing the work to access the records so they're in your hands, so that you have sovereignty over your knowledge and your information and your records. So I just issued a 3-month progress report. I guess it was my 4-month progress report. You can pick up copies. It's online at our website, and there's also some copies at our booth outside. I have to write an interim report, which will be due in June of 2023. and then a final report in June of 2024. My mandate is a 2-year mandate, and the budget is $10.4 million was the budget that was granted to us. My progress report, these are no surprise to you, these common concerns. Everywhere I go, every community I speak to, every team that's doing this work, looking for the missing children, have these issues, these concerns. Access to records. There's delay in getting access. When you get access, you don't have access to the full record. There's people doling out pages to you, 1 page at a time, and not giving you the full access. Insufficient funding, and we heard that. We had a gathering in Winnipeg. We heard a lot about the insufficient funding for mental wellness, community well-being funding. There's insufficient funding to do the searches, and that's an ongoing concern that I keep raising with Minister Miller and Minister Lametti. There is a massive delay in analyzing the data. We have people that are out there collecting, doing the GPR, the LiDAR, the other technology. We have so few experts in this country that know how to analyze the data for burials. There's lots of companies that can find pipes and utility lines. Don't be fooled by them. They don't know how to analyze the data for burials, and they're not collecting the data properly. So that's something that the National Advisory Committee is working on to make sure that everyone's aware of the guidelines that the Canadian Archaeology Association has established. You want to make sure those guidelines are being followed. Access to land. I'm sure you've heard of the different situations that have been happening across the country where communities are trying to get access to land to do searches. And there's private landowners now creating barriers for communities to get onto those lands. There's been, I'll speak about it in a second, there's been a court case where Indigenous people were able to get an injunction to stop development on a land until a proper search is done. There's other situations happening where negotiations are in play, trying to negotiate agreements so communities can get onto the land. That's the problem with our law. We don't have a law that grants access to these lands. And then finally, justice and accountability. Who's the right police to call in? Is it the RCMP? Is it the OPP? Why would we call in those perpetrators? Why would we rely on the institutions that took the children away? Is there another entity that could come in and do proper investigations? How do we hold people accountable, especially if they're all deceased? How do we hold the state and church entities accountable? Is there an international forum that these matters can go to? We've been told the International Criminal Court won't take on this because they were created too late. They don't have jurisdiction. Is there other mechanisms with the United Nations internationally that these matters could be taken forward to? Those are the common concerns. So the Ganastonsara, the Mohawk mother case, was someone talking to me? So this case is, I want to share this case with you because it's in relation to, one, a hospital, a former hospital in Montreal, the Royal Victoria Hospital, and the Allen Memorial Institute. Provincially operated hospitals. It wasn't an Indian hospital, but there are records that show INAC or Indian Affairs, whatever they were called back then, said this is where you take Indigenous children. This is where you take Indigenous people to this hospital. It's an approved hospital for us to pay for the maintenance of people. We know Inuit were taken there. We know Inuit kids died there and never got returned home. There are policies that said we will not send the bodies home. So McGill owns the land with the province of Quebec, and they're redeveloping the land. And the Mohawk mothers went to court with no lawyer and tried to stop the development so that they could search the grounds. And they won. They won an injunction representing themselves. And they didn't argue colonial law, Canadian law, Quebec law, civil law. They argued the great law, Indigenous law. And now they're in conversations with the province of Quebec and McGill to put a proper plan in place that includes collecting testimony from survivors. Experiments were done on children at the Allen Memorial. You can Google that, that's a known fact. Experiments were done there. They're going to collect statements from survivors. They're going to do archival research. They're going to do proper ground searches with GPR and LiDAR and cadaver dogs. All that while all the development's been put on hold. And McGill has to pay for it all. McGill has to pay for it all. So I wanted to bring that case to everyone's attention if you're running into situations in your territory. We shouldn't have to run to court to get this. We are now at a point in our country when Indigenous people come forward and say, we think there are burials, you need to, Canada and the provinces need to step up. There's too much truth already revealed. We know there are burials on these grounds. So in all this work, I've been meeting with communities, I've been meeting with survivor groups, I've been meeting with the teams that are doing the ground searches, I've been going to assemblies in provincial PTOs, and I've also have been holding gatherings. So we had our first gathering in Edmonton in September. We will be putting the summary of the report and all the video of that gathering on our website. We just finished a gathering on community wellness in Winnipeg. We had over 500 people that came from all over the country. Our next gathering, registration is open. It's in Vancouver, January 17th to 19th, and it's about affirming Indigenous sovereignty over our knowledge, over our data, and how to get access to records. We will be holding a gathering in Toronto, March 27th to 29th, on upholding Indigenous law, where we're going to bring knowledge keepers together and elders and survivors to talk about what are our laws around burial, what are our laws around repatriation, what are the ceremonies that need to take place. And then we're also organizing gatherings in Quebec and in the north that we're in process of having conversations with leadership about where those should be. All this in 2 years. And I'll leave it at that and say now I thank you, Miigwech, and I don't know if, I'm happy to take questions if or not.
Maybe not if there's no one,
You didn't have the timer
because it's
on.
almost, yeah. Okay, yes, we. Thank you very much, Kimberly, for your presentation. Very much appreciated, as we can notice on the floor. And we still have a lot of chiefs and proxies online. So we'll have time for we'll take the two of you that are present at the microphone right now. So Kimberly is ready and prepared to answer questions. So microphone number 1, please, you have 3 minutes. If you can, please state your name and First Nation. And we'll hear you, and then we'll go to you, and then we'll go to microphone number 2. And come back to you, Kimberly. So thank you very much. Microphone number 1, please.
Thank you. David Monias, Chief of the Nation, Sopra Nation, Pimitsikamak. Thank you for the report. And I think that, it's, I've been to this press conference. We have more than missing women, Indigenous women. And we also have on what you just finished the report on murder and missing Indigenous children. That's something that's really important that we need to hear and we need to be able to address and talk about. And it really hurts me that the leadership is missing. Maybe you need to start a committee on that. This is very important for us to address as chiefs. We need the leadership to be here to hear these things. Our people are counting on it. They're counting on us to do something. If we're not here to listen to it, If we're not here to address it, how can we expect the government to address it? We cannot be part of the problem if we want to be part of the solution. I just wanted to make that comment. And also in terms of the mandate you get, that's coming from that's asking like you're a murderer to tell you what you can investigate, what you cannot investigate, and what tools you can use. That's why we need international intervention. The International Committee of Missing Persons should have been involved in this case. They do that all over the world for other countries where people are massacred or missing. I just wanted to reiterate that this is, I'll feel sorry for our people if we're not here to listen to these things, which is a very important thing. And I think we need to start taking that very seriously. Thank you for your report. There was an honest commitment today.
Thank you for those comments. I did want to speak about the International Missing Persons Commission because I'm going to be meeting with them and hoping that they'll come to one of our gatherings. The one thing, you know, before I want to be able to say I want to stand behind them, I want to make sure they know how to incorporate Indigenous protocols and Indigenous law into their work, because I've been looking at what they've done to date, and it's very colonial. And so I'm really looking forward to having conversations with them to see how we can get them to think a little bit differently, and not have families and Indigenous communities as an afterthought, and they just roll in with all their expertise in forensics. But they do great work. The only question I have is, are they the greatest work we can have for our people here? There are other organizations. There's one in Guatemala who's worked primarily with Indigenous communities in excavating and finding missing loved ones. And they put the family in the center of their work, which I'm hearing that that's not what the the International Missing Persons Commission does. So it's just a little bit different. It's a nuance, but I am going to be meeting them, and I want them to come to one of our gatherings. So now wait for that.
Thank you very much for this. So I acknowledge that there are 3 other speakers at the microphone. It's now 6 p.m., but it's so important. And so are you okay? What I propose, we're going to hear the three of you, one after the other. So we were at microphone number 2, and then I know one exception. So we'll hear, yeah, thank you. We'll hear both of you, so 3 minutes each, and then we'll go to microphone number 1 for a final, you want to, okay. So we'll have 3 minutes maximum for each of you, and then we'll come back to Kimberly for a final answer. So 3 minutes, microphone number 2, please.
Byron Lewis, Chief of the Okanagan Band. One of the things I'd like to, really stress, and that's not only for, the organization that you're representing, but also for the, the PTOs and also for the AFN in general. One of the things that really needs to be addressed is who actually has sovereignty over genetic materials. And, if you go into British Columbia, they'll make the claim that it's 1846 is when the Crown claimed sovereignty. But we have sites, even in our own community, that go back 2,500 years. And anything in there is that goes beyond that point, it's obvious who the owners are. And if you go right across North America, you're seeing all types of studies. One that came out of Montana recently that put the date going back to 10,000 years. Mm-hmm. Another one was Kennewick Man that came out of La Columbia, who was a part of our people, was about 9,000. And there's even studies now going back to 14,000 years. And one of the things we had recently done, and it was really reluctant that we actually agreed to that, was taking a sample out of a molar to actually to get the DNA that was tested in there. But not only was the DNA tested, but it also proved that it was about 90% of our diet was anadromous or aquatic species. So it's really important to actually look at that as the genetic materials, but it's not only that, as the genetic materials that surround there. And it doesn't matter of, it goes to establishing where we are, who we are. And you look at some of the studies, there's even one study that actually was being conducted between Lake Winnipeg and Lake Winnipegosis that was actually finding corn. And if they find corn in that site, that means that agriculture was actually being practiced that far west. And that was about 1450 is when they dated that. But immediately after that, there was a mini ice age that lasted about 1750. And that more or less changed the environment, so agriculture couldn't be practiced. But again, it's so important who actually owns the genetic materials, because there's so many sites around this province that go beyond whatever is being dated, and it's quite obvious that is ours and that is no one else's, and we need to be the determining body who says where that material is going. Okay,
30
thank you.
seconds. Oh, 30 seconds.
Done.
So I just want to say thank you for those comments, and I hope you'll come to our gathering in Vancouver and speak about that. It is a concern I've been hearing over genetic materials, and if communities are going to want to do matching, they don't want the DNA with the RCMP. And so why can't we have our own? Why can't we have our own Indigenous Missing Persons Commission? Why can't we have our own people managing the sovereignty over DNA? So those are some of the things that we're looking at, and I'm going to talk to you after. So now
Thank you very much for this. So microphone number 2, please, 3 minutes. Thank you, maximum 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Tammy Cook-Searson, and I'm the chief of the Lac La Ronge Indian Band. And we're one of the sites where we're searching one of our graves, where we had a residential school. Actually, we had 2 residential schools there. And I'm wanting to invite you to come to La Ronge and meet with our council and with our community members. And I'm happy that you've been appointed the special interlock and to work with us in our communities. I think for us, we just need guidance and support, and also a voice to be able to keep moving forward with our search for the missing graves. I know that we've found many unmarked graves already, and we've been working with SNC Lavalin. But we just want to be able to complete inside the grave site, and we haven't yet. But we also have our elders have identified sites outside of the grave, and then also other sites off the residential school site. But if you can help us, guide us with that, because I think, like for myself, as I heard you speaking, and I'm glad that I stayed till the end, and I know it's late, and I'm really happy that you have interpreters here too for the hearing impaired, because I think that's so important. I don't know if it should be on the screen too, or even on the internet, because there's a lot of people that need that service to be able to hear what's being talked about here. But I think the work that you're doing is really important, and the common issues that you talk about are also common issues that we deal with. But we have 2 band members that have done a lot of research, and really important research on our community and also the impact of the church. But I think there's very, like for myself, just speaking personally, the church has really impacted our communities, so it's hard for us to speak out, I guess, but just to come and give us that voice that we need and to be able to move it forward, because I think it's important, and I think it's really important that we come together as a community. And we did do community events where we had some healing events, and it was really powerful. And we also had the bishop and the Indigenous bishop come to our community and do services too. But just, I think for you to come to our community, to come and help us. And I'll connect with you after the meeting. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. I absolutely will come and meet with you, Chief, and with your team. You know, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission talked about the spiritual violence that still exists in communities, and we are seeing that where sometimes it takes an outside voice so that we're not pitting Christians against non-Christians. And so I'm happy to come meet with you.
Because
So-
we want to work together, and we just want to come up with, because we know it's going to take a collective effort to be able to move forward, and it's going to take all of us. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
Tini.
you.
Thank you very much. Whoa, we have much more chiefs at the microphone. So we have 3 chiefs at microphone number 1, so 3 minutes each. So microphone number 1, please open the microphone and please state your name and First Nation. Thank you.
Good evening, Chief Arnie Lampro from Shawkan Indian Band out of Merritt. I'm a part of the Tlakatmuk Nation, Shishwapunk Nation, Statliam Nation, Okanagan Nation, and I'm a 3rd generation survivor. I went to Kamloops Residential School. I just wanted to say that, you know, during my lifetime, it was 60 years now, I've survived since I was 11 years old when I was finally kicked out of that place because I was running away. But I watched many of my friends and family die because of either addictions or all of the horrific things that happened to them during their time there. Many of the families that I have and extended families that might have had children there were never asked, and they hold that dear to their hearts because of all of the abuses that they endured, or being locked away for months and months without ever seeing anybody because of the condition of their body, the female body. And so the thing is many of these babies that might have been born there were probably disposed of and were never ever seen. So there was no chance of that for some of these ladies or children, girls, to have a peaceful life of raising children. All they had was turmoil for the rest of their lives. And many of my family members had that. We need to, right now, at this level here, you know, as a chief, I recommend that we start engaging with our women that are survivors and get their stories before they're gone. We can look at all the dead ones after, but the ones that are still alive yet, that still have a story, that still remain here on top of this earth, we need to get that documented before they take it with them, because we don't know how many of them that they've lost. You know, and it's a very hard thing to talk about today. And I really appreciate all of the supports that the AFN has done for our people.
I'm sorry to interrupt. You have 30 seconds left. Thank you.
So anyways, I really appreciate what Chief said over here. We need more interactive and more engagement for our people. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, for those comments. I also just want to acknowledge your sharing about the women. I have put a call out for the provinces and territories to also remove the fee for communities to access death certificates and birth certificates, because I'm hearing over and over and over again from women that they gave birth and they were told the baby died in a hospital and they don't know where their baby is buried. And I say, if your baby died in a hospital and the law was followed, there will be a death certificate. And I have actually found burial grounds of children that mothers have been looking for and never knew where they were buried. And I also want to acknowledge, I know that there's those that also died not in hospitals, and we have to honor those children and those women.
Thank you for all your participation and all you come to share with us. Microphone number 1, please.
Chief Don Miracle, Mohawks, the Bay of Quinte. A
3
few years,
minutes, please, on the timer. I'm sorry. Yeah.
pardon me?
I'm sorry because I just noticed that technician, please put the 3 minutes on. Thank you. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Chief Don Miracle, Mohawks, the Bay of Quinte. Thank you very much for your presentation. A few years ago, there was an AFN conference in Halifax, and there was an RCMP superintendent there. His name was Tim Walton. And the whole issue of murdered and missing women, Indigenous girls, came up, and children that were missing as well. And he said that there was a place somewhere, I think it's here in Ottawa, that they have a whole lot of human remains in storage, that they have been there for decades. And I question, well, why was there no DNA testing done and running it through a system to find out if they can find out who these relatives are? So if they haven't did the DNA testing there, what would make us confident the government would do DNA testing with the victim, the people who died at the residential school or other places?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I guess, you know, maybe some of these bones that have been in storage in Ottawa for many years, maybe they could be repatriated as well back to their families, because it's the same sort of abuse where they haven't had the dignity of being providing the families of those people with closure.
And now for that, Chief Miracle. It's not just here in Ottawa, it's with every coroner's office across the country. In Ontario, the Chief Coroner for Ontario committed to pulling all those, and I'm sorry to say this, boxes of remains that they have to reinvestigate them because they were open and shut cases. They were deemed to not be a forensically, I forget the word that they used. And so I would say any remains found of children or adults near an Indian residential school or any of these institutions should be reopened by the coroner's offices. So, now
Thank you very much for this. Are you together or one before the other? Because I think you were there, right? First? Okay, so you still want to address the assembly, Chief, after? So, I'm sorry. Okay, so Chief, microphone number 1, please. You have up to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Segon, Sewagwegon, Iaguaranda Yunjats. My name is Victor Bonspill. I'm the Grand Chief of Gunnesedage Mohawk Territory, Kimberly's hometown. I just want to say to Kimberly and everybody here and commend you on the job that you're doing and the team that you have. That I know it's not a hard, it's a hard job that you have. It's not easy, but in the end, you're bringing some peace of mind, I think, to First Nations people who have lost their family members and finding their remains and putting them to rest. So I just want to let you know that Gunnesedage is proud of you and your team. So continue what you're doing, and I hope that this mandate of yours continues, because I don't think the one that you have is long enough. I hope it continues and you get an extension to continue your work and bring some peace and solace to these families. Nyongo.
Now, Grand Chief, I really appreciate those words, and you know, I think that's what it's all about, Skana. So, now
Yes. Thank you very much. Our last and final speaker. So, Chief, at the microphone number 1, please open the microphone.
Check 1.
Thank
Just
you.
short and sweet. Time is a factor. This file is very emotional for our communities. and our families. And I share with you, I've been to one of your conferences in Edmonton. I was there, and I never got the opportunity to even speak there. You have all these international people there speaking, totally out of left field from where we are in the communities, what we want to do and how we want to do it. We don't dig bodies up in our community. We get our direction from our elders, our lodge keepers. And that's something, like every government program we get, it's driven, colonial drivenness. And you got to give the people the power to do what they want to do, how they want to do it, where they want to do it. You have to respect those people. You know, it's not easy. You know, I just lost, in the last 2 days, I lost a sister and a brother. And I buried my other brother last week, 3 survivors. You know, and that's painful. I got so much to say about this, about these bodies that we found in our community with our 2 schools. And for some unfortunate reason, Ted never has that opportunity. So I'd like to tell you, I'll see you in Vancouver, and I hope at least give me 5 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Ted, and my condolences to you for the loss of your family and your loved ones. I acknowledge, I saw what happened in Edmonton when you got cut off, and I went looking for you because I wanted to sit with you and have a conversation. I hope that we did better in Winnipeg and created more space for survivors to be heard, and I've told the hosts, the MCs, that we have to have that open dialogue so people can have this conversation. And Ted, I'm happy to come meet with you wherever you want to meet, because I'd like to have conversations with you about the very important issue about whether communities are struggling with that, and everyone has different thoughts on whether the children's remains should be excavated. There are communities that have said, I was just in a community on Sunday, they said, we want our children back home and brought home. So these are difficult conversations. We have different protocols around that. And everyone's voices need to be heard, and I agree with you, Ted. So I hope to talk with you more.
Thank you very, very much for all of you that came to the microphone to address the assembly. And I'm gonna ask to open the microphone number 2 for the last speaker for this. It's 20 past 6. So microphone number 2, please.
I know that you said that would be the last speaker. I feel that it's important for me to come up here and put a few words to the lady there. I would also like to invite you to my community. My name is Ron Beardy. I'm a Garden Hill First Nations from Manitoba. I live in a very remote area. I am a residential school survivor myself. And it seems like every day I think about it. And I'm 74 years old now. I've been carrying that for many years. And a lot of people here, just imagine how many people in this room have carried that for so many years. It's only recently that it became to be more public than what you hear. In the past, it was a closed issue. We didn't even want to talk about these things that we faced to our children, to our own children. Now, it was only about 10 years back that it became more and more public. And I've been hearing that a lot of people have still wounded hearts in them. I am an example. I don't know what I could do or what I could say to people when I face them, when I talk to them. It's very hard. And what it's doing to our people now, our young people from generation to generation, it carries. And I see that happening across Canada to our people because of what was done to us. I went to James Smith Cree Nation. I went to go and talk to them, to help them, to try and find words for healing. And you know where that comes from? It's the impact that was happening back then, still now carrying. And our children are still suffering from that. I'd like to thank you very much for listening, but I have a lot to say for the residential school survivors. I dearly saddened to hear about the Kamloops 250 unmarked graves. And I sat beside the banner that was read that had 4,220 children that never made it home. I could just imagine how they would feel if they didn't know what happened to their little ones. The little ones that never made it back to their mummies and daddies. And they still don't know what happened to them. Now you talk about records that are so hard to get from the government. We need to do something about that. Too many of us have already gone, not even knowing where our little ones went. I'm speaking on behalf of everybody that went through that system like me, and I'm not afraid to say it. Thank you very much.
I just want to say thank you for those words, and I will come to Garden Hill to meet with you and the other survivors in your community. And I know that these conversations just reopen the trauma for survivors, and I apologize for that having to happen. But I thank you for sharing your truths, and we need to make sure that this never happens again in this country.
I just wanted to call, if we're done.
Microphone number 2,
Oh,
please,
sorry,
for final
sorry.
words.
My name is Eric Morris. I am the chief for Tezinklinka Council, otherwise known as the Nashadahani. You know, we've gone through a really difficult conversation here over the last while, and I think we should pray for ourselves before we leave this place. Okay? Do you want somebody to come and pray, or do you want me to do it?
Chief?
You want me to do it?
Chief, Chief, what I propose is, here it is, because I have some announcement to make, and I have to make it before 6:30. Because so what I propose that we thank very, very, very much our presenter for everything that she came and shared with us, and for really important presentation. Thank you very much. Merci. Thank you very much. Yep, and thank you very much to all of you that came to the microphone and shared your truth, and very appreciated. For this, I have some, now, before the closing, I need to make some announcements and messages, and usually what we do an opening the first morning, the first day, and we close it properly the last day. But I heard you ask for the drums. I'm not in a position to answer that. But what we'll do, I'll do the job I have to do right now. And after, if there's like. Okay. Should I finish? Okay. Okay. Yes, we'll have a prayer. We'll have a Chief Morris to do the prayer. But okay. So why not doing the? Yes. Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna finish the announcement. Just I'm sorry, but I'll do that, and then we'll come back to you. Thank you so much for this suggestion. Okay. So before closing the day, I need to make some, as I just mentioned, I need to make some announcement. But first, I want to ensure you that we will deal with draft resolution, the charter one, the last one that we didn't dealt with today. We'll deal with it tomorrow. It's draft resolution number 4. And there is also an emergency resolution related to water. We'll deal with this tomorrow as well. But tomorrow morning, we'll have our debrief and briefing meetings, and we'll speak with the resolution team and everyone, and we'll be in a position to confirm the exact order and the agenda items, the exact order of resolution tomorrow. But rest assured that we will deal with that tomorrow, and. Okay, and I just wanted also to mention that at 6:30 p.m. there's a parliamentary reception, and it's by invitation only at the Shaw Center Trillium Ballroom. First announced. Second one, there's a pipe ceremony tomorrow at 6 a.m. in the Confederation Ballroom. Third announcement, I want you to please note that the deadline for the late resolutions is December 7th. So what date are we today? It's tomorrow. So tomorrow at noon Eastern time, it's the deadline for the late resolutions. Just wanted to give you an overview. It's important. Tomorrow we will have a plenary on UNDRIP. We'll deal with resolutions. We'll have also a plenary on the final settlement agreement on child welfare for the long-term reform and Jordan Principle. And we have some guests tomorrow. So we have Yves-François Blanchette, the leader of the Bloc Québécois. We also have the Minister of Public Safety Canada, Marco Mendicino, and we'll have an honoring of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Yeah, that's about it, and all the resolution that we'll deal with tomorrow morning. So we will adjourn this first day of the special annual assembly of the AFN. We will reconvene tomorrow here at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. I am missing anything before going back to you, Chief? I mentioned. Okay, so sorry if I missed something, but I think I covered it all. So thank you so much, and the very important first day. I wish you all a very, very great evening, and I'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, yes, yes. Just want to make sure that this is finished. And now we come back to microphone number 2. Chief Morris, to you.
Thank you very much. Just wanted to.
Please, if you can please all stand up, maybe on the virtual platform as well. Thank you.
To all of you, you know, we just wanted to acknowledge you and your presence still, you know. This obviously was very, 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 very important to all of you, eh? And it's really, really heavy. You know, like the old people would say, eh? It's just like they put a rock on your shoulder, eh? It's like they put a rock on your shoulder, and they would say that they put that weight on you, and you got to shoulder it, and you got to carry it, and you don't stumble, and you don't teeter, and you stand strong, and that's just what we got here, just from what we were talking about. And that's why you have to yourselves really think about what you just heard and really pray for it hard. Pray to the Creator that, you know, those people that have gone through all of this experience, you know, they really feel it, and they feel it just like you do. And that's why you have to think of them and pray for them and pray for yourselves and give thanks to the Creator for being able to have the strength to be here still to hear that and to go through it and walk through it and feel it again, but be able to have the strength to come out of it strong, eh? Because that's the way we all are. We're really, really strong. You know, we pray for you, Kim, you know, because you're hearing a lot from people about their experiences, and you carry a lot, and you have to be strong yourself to see yourself through it and to walk away from it when you need to. You have to do it in a way that's going to best keep you strong for all the work you're going to be given to, the responsibility to do, eh? So we say, Hahita Dashia Ankao in our language. We call him the Creator to be with us, to come to be with us, to feel His warmth in our bodies, to feel His presence in our bodies, because that's how we have to be. God, let Him warm our bodies. Let Him be part of our breath. Our breath is strong. When we breathe in and we breathe out, it's strong. It gives us strength. It takes that misery and sickness and illness out of our body when we breathe it out and we get rid of it. And that's how we have to be, eh? We say, Gunlathshisha Ankao, for that strength that you've given to us to be able to still sit here and hear what we heard, to be able to get up from where we were at and to be able to walk away from it and leave it in a good way. Walk away from it and just let it be. Let ourselves walk away from all of that. Have the strength to be strong and to continue to be strong, not just for ourselves, but for our families and for those that we have in our lives. And we pray for all of those that are still going through those difficult times. We ask for strength for them, that they be strong, they be really strong, so that we all can become strong. So we give thanks to the Creator for all of this, and we say, Gunlathshisha Ankao, Gunlathshish for being present and being with us at this time, Gunlathshish.
Chimigwich. Good night. Bonne soirée à vous tous et toutes. Alors, je vous souhaite un bon repos pour être en forme demain matin et d'attaque pour entamer une deuxième journée de cette Assemblée spéciale annuelle de l'Assemblée des Premières Nations. Merci beaucoup. Bonne soirée. Au revoir.